some of the like scientific stuff, pretty cool. Okay, so it's echoing. It's not loud enough. I have to yell.
Or should we try with that other one?
Is this any better? It's closer? Okay, maybe it has to be closer. Okay, so what are some of the animals that are allowed to be sacrificed for Eid al-Adha? Can you do duck?
No.
Chicken? Where's all the kids? All the kids are missing. I'm going to ask adults if there's no kids.
What is the question?
You guys are all eating. What's, mashallah. Okay. So what are some of the animals that are allowed to be sacrificed for Eid al-Adha? There's animals that are halal. Like, can you eat a fish? Can you any other time you can eat fish, right? But for Eid al-Adha, are you allowed to sacrifice fish? No. Okay. What about, so what are some of the animals that you can sacrifice that is allowable? Huh? Cow, okay. Anything else? Huh? Goat, okay. Anything else? Sheep, lamb, okay. What else? Camel, excellent. Okay, very good. No horse. So, why is it that these are the specific animals here, but all the other times we can eat fish, whatever else you can eat, any other, some of these other animals, but why is it chicken, for example? But why is it for this is for specific animals? What's going on here? Okay. ثمانية أزواج. Okay, so there's different animals that is allowed. When you sacrifice an animal, what makes the animal halal when we do the zabiha of it? What is the characteristics of the animal that makes it halal for you to eat? What is it? Huh? Okay, so first thing, you say you have to take Allah's name, right? Everything has an intention. You have to take Allah's name when you're taking the life of this living creature. You're taking the life of something, Allah has put life in it, and you will be using Allah subhanahu wa means and all that to take this animal's life, right? And so you have to start with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one who is the giver of life and giver of death, right? So, okay, you lay the animal down, and it has to be facing Qibla direction, and then you make the sacrificing of the animal. And now you have to cut certain parts of the animal too, right? For it to be acceptable in terms of what are you trying to accomplish? Why do you, okay, where do you cut the animal? Do you cut its leg off?
No.
What, neck? Neck. Why do you have to cut the neck? We have an answer from sister. Yeah, okay, good. What is the sister's answer? You got scared? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, the blood vessels are easily accessible by the neck. Why can't you just stun the animal with electricity, or shoot the animal in the head, or I don't know, chainsaw the animal down the back or something like this? You know, some of these movies you go see, like how McDonald's get its meat or something like that. You'll see like some crazy things. They hang the animal upside down and they electrocute it first, they shock it, and then they go and cut the guts out. So what is the issue? What are you trying to accomplish? There's the spiritual part of it, and then there's the physical part. Okay, so what's the physical part? What are you trying to accomplish by taking the animal at his neck? SubhanAllah. Okay. You guys ever watch, astaghfirullah, UFC fighting? You ever seen when they put those people in those headlocks, those chokeholds? And what happens? They go to sleep pretty fast, right? Pretty fast. Why did they go to sleep so fast? What's happening? Yeah. You have two major arteries that go to the brain, and there's one on the right and one on the left. These are the carotid arteries. They go up. Yeah. So if you decrease blood flow, you will have decreased perfusion to the brain, decreased thinking, and you go unconscious. This is what's happening to these fighters when they do these chokeholds. Now, can you choke a human being? Can you choke? Have you seen when they fight? Is it possible to put someone in a chokehold just from putting pressure on one side of the neck? Why? There are two sides, correct. So if you hold pressure here like this and I completely occlude my carotid artery, you can feel the carotid artery is pulsating. You can feel it. You put pressure here, you'll feel it. All right, this is one of the major arteries that go to the brain. If you put pressure, you occlude it. Now it's off. And how much pressure do you have to put to occlude the carotid artery? How much pressure? Huh? Not that much is a good answer. How much pressure do you have to put to occlude an artery? It's your blood pressure. What is blood pressure? Your blood pressure is the pressure your heart has to generate to push out blood. So average blood pressure of a human being when the heart is contracting is 120 millimeters of mercury. When it's relaxed, it's what? 80, 120 over 80. So even when the heart is not pumping, you have pressure. This whole system is pressurized. Pressure creates flow, right? The only way you can get things to flow is having a pressure gradient. So you have a high pressure system to low pressure, you have flow. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed this really genius design. Even when your heart is relaxed and it's not pumping, you have a pressure. How are you generating a pressure when there's no pumping of the heart? How is that happening? Anyone have an idea? Do you guys even think about this stuff? It's really amazing how the body works. So if you have a pump, right, spinning and it's generating pressure, if you shut the pump down, which the heart shuts down, there's a filling. The heart has to receive blood in its filling, so it's not pumping. The pump is shut down. If your pump is shut down, you have no more flow. You have no more flow because you have no more pressure gradient. But the human body has a pressure gradient. In fact, when you're dead, you still have pressure gradient. It's around 12 millimeters of mercury. If you put a transducer to measure blood pressure into the person's blood pressure, like the artery, you know those waveforms we see in the ICU? When the person dies, it's no longer pumping because there's no heart, but there is a flatline pressure. There is a continuous pressure around 12 millimeters of mercury because you have some things in your body that you guys still haven't given me the answer for. What is creating this pressure system when your heart is not pumping? How come you still have flow? Why is it that when the heart is not pumping, it's relaxed, you still have blood flow going around? You have no more pressure difference. So how is that happening? It's still flowing. Why is it flowing? The pump is shut down. Huh? What about the brain? Brain is still working, the kidneys are still getting perfusion, the liver is still getting perfusion, everything's getting perfusion, because if you only had one shot of high pressure and then it shut off, then there's decreased perfusion. You're going to have ups and downs to the organ, and the organ's not going to like it. So the organ actually receives, Gravity? Okay, but I can go in space and I'll still be alive. Or I can fly in an airplane with heavy G's, 3 G's, 5 G's, 9 G's, and I'm still alive. Or you can go negative G's, negative 1 G, negative 2 G, roll.
So like if somebody press these two ways, for how long, once you press it, you'll faint it, the person is temporarily faint, but how long it has to be?
Few seconds.
You come back.
So you see these fighters, they go to sleep within a few seconds.
Yeah, but how long you can be like that?
Yeah, you tell me, man.
So once you release the hand, then
It comes back.
start pumping again.
Okay, so here's the deal. The reason why you still have pressure, even though your heart is not pumping, is because the engineering is genius. Your arteries expand and contract. When you push in a huge amount of force into the artery expands. And then when the heart is relaxed, your arteries are contracting. And the artery is the one now pumping the blood flow. So if you actually watch a pressure graph of how blood flow happens, the heart pumps, huge pressure, that's the 120 systolic, and it slowly trends down to 80, and then it pumps up again and it comes down. But you're between 120 and 80, you still have a pressure gradient because the other side of the heart that's receiving the flow, the end pump, because you have a pressure gradient, you have huge amount of pressure, low amount of pressure, the only way you get flow is from high to low. So the other side of the heart has about 10 millimeters of mercury, the other side, the right side of the heart. And so you get this continuous circuit because you have 80 millimeters on diastolic to 10, so you have a 70 delta of millimeters of mercury, so there's flow. So even though your heart is shut off, because your arteries took a lot of the blood flow. When your heart gets shut down, your arteries contract and they push the blood forwards. And now why doesn't the blood go backwards? Because when the artery is contracting, it's like a balloon. Imagine a balloon, you're pushing it like this, it's going to go both ways. Why does it only go one way? You guys don't think about this stuff.
It's like the flow has to go back.
Why does it have to go that direction? Why can't it go backwards? Can it go back to your brain and go back into your heart?
That's how it cleans blood.
Well, it's continuously flowing, so it's cleaning through the kidneys and the liver, but that's through the organs. But the reason why is a couple reasons. Number one, you have pressure gradient we just talked about, so things go through pressure gradient. But even if you were to go upside down or do different things, or someone has heart failure where the heart has huge amount of pressure on the backside, you still will have blood flow. But what's happening is you have valves, unidirectional valves. So kind of like the diodes and stuff that you guys, electrical engineers, computer engineers, you set up, one-way current, you can't put current the other way. There's a switch that turns off. So as soon as you push flow through and there's decreased flow, it pops off. It's a pop-off valve. There's no more flow that can come backwards. So if you try to go backwards, it opens up the valve, you can't go. It only allows this way direction. The valve only opens one direction. It's a beautiful design. You have valves in these. The contractility allows for continuous blood flow. And you have a pressure gradient. So all of these things allow for blood flow in a single direction. Okay, so if you shut off one part of your artery and not the other, you stay awake or you go to sleep? You stay awake. Some people, as they get older, they get plaques in their arteries. You know how you get heart attacks, you get strokes? A stroke is, what is a stroke? Yeah, you can either have huge amount of pressure to the brain and you bleed out in your brain, or you have decreased pressure to the brain and you have a stroke it's called ischemic stroke, where you have decreased oxygen. It's kind of like a heart attack, but it's a brain attack. So you have decreased oxygen to the brain or too much blood flow to the brain. It has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. And so these arteries that we talked about contracting, expanding, they do this to regulate flow into the brain, in and out of the brain. It's really genius. And this is for all the organs. They have this auto-regulation. They can expand or contract to allow more or increase, decrease blood flow. Kind of like electric or gas supply or fluid dynamics. You can control the flow by these valves and stuff. And you don't have to think about all this. All this is happening geniusly behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about it. Imagine if you just turn on and off all your valves and control blood flow and how much your kidneys are getting, how much your liver is getting, how much your brain is going. Because you also have height difference, right? Your brain is up here, is receiving different flow than your heart is receiving, than your kidneys are receiving, than your feet is receiving. Each of these has different pressures. If you measure your blood pressure at your foot, it's different than your blood pressure at your arm. And you measure your blood pressure at your arm, it's different than your blood pressure at your carotid. Each one of these has different blood flows and different pressures and flows, and it's all being regulated without you thinking about it. And people think this is random, right? This is random. It just happened by chance, big explosion, and all the atoms that were hydrogen only, they all assembled and they made all these valves and all this stuff, and it's all just random. It's really crazy to believe that, right? Okay. So when you cut the animal, before we go, so when people get older, they get strokes, and it's because you get plaques in these arteries, right? If you get plaques, you have decreased blood flow. And so now what can happen is you only need a little bit of pressure, or you just need to occlude one side and you can get a stroke because the other side is shut down because you have so many plaques. You don't have enough blood flow to the brain and then you get a stroke, right? And you can get a right-sided stroke, left-sided stroke, depending on what artery is shut down. So there's different features, different symptoms that will come up depending on what artery gets shut down and where. Okay, so now you have input into the brain, and the animals have the same thing. They have input into the brain, but if you keep putting flow into the brain, what's going to happen? If you don't have an exit, burst. It's like a pipe. If you keep sending input into it and you're not taking anything out, it'll burst. All right? Or it will shut the flow off. Like you don't have any more pressure. The pressure here is too much for the pressure here to push into it. So either you stop blood flow or it bursts. One of the two has to happen. You have to have exit for the blood.
So when the blood goes, is there an exit back?
The exit. What is the name of the exits for their animals? Have the same thing. These are why the animals, it all comes down to, we're going to get to why you have to cut these things in the animal. So the exit is called the what veins? Jugular. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closer than your jugular vein. The jugular vein is the first vein that takes all the blood from your brain. It makes it come out. It's very close.
So you
Okay.
said there are two veins, one that goes to the brain and one that
One input, one output. Yeah. And so you have jugular on this side, jugular on that side, same thing. Because if you get a clot or something, you need to be able to make it come out the other way. So you can live with just one of these. It's a backup system Allah SWT put in for us. Because maybe you get hurt, maybe you're in a car accident, maybe someone holds pressure, maybe when you're sleeping on one side of the pillow and you have pressure here and you don't even know about it, you don't die. Can you imagine? The pillow's too tight, you're like this, no problem, no issue, you don't die. Imagine these things you don't even think about, you take for granted. It's crazy. Okay, so for the animal, you have two inputs going in, two outputs coming out. Okay? You have to cut these. You have to cut because the blood has to come out of the animal. The beauty of this now is the animal cannot feel anymore. Because once you have shut off blood flow to the brain, it's just like these fighters that go to sleep, you're unconscious. So it doesn't matter if it takes 10 minutes for the blood to come out, or 5 minutes for the blood to come out, or an hour for it to come out, or 2 seconds for it to come out. There's no more pain because you need your brain to feel pain. The brain is the part that processes pain. Okay? So it's a really genius system, subhanAllah, how it's made up, that the neck is easily accessible. You cut it, the heart will keep pumping. The heart is the pump. It doesn't need the brain. Because you imagine if you cut here, everything is controlled by the electrical system that comes from the brain. If you cut this, if you completely decapitate the animal, which you don't have to do, you completely take the head off the animal, the heart still pumps. Why? Because it doesn't need the brain. Amazing. Yeah, heart has its own electrical supply. Heart has its own different special muscles. You only find cardiac muscle in the heart. You do not find this muscle anywhere else in the body. The intestines is made of a different muscle, the skeletal muscle, even though you have muscles, and these are muscles, and this is a muscle, this muscle and this muscle are totally different. This muscle has no own electrical supply. This has its own electrical supply. With no brain, it keeps pumping. This is why when you take off the arteries and veins of the animal, it keeps squeezing and all the blood ejects out and is evacuating the blood because blood is not jaiz for us to be eating like that, right? SubhanAllah. Beautiful system. It's a self-evacuation to get out all the blood from the animal. Really genius. So, okay. You also typically will cut the windpipe, trachea. So this is the one that goes to the lungs. Okay, you're cutting that. And then also there's 4. You don't have to get all 4. So there's arteries, veins, trachea, and then what's the last one? What else is here? We already talked about jugular. What is it? Arteries, veins, trachea, and what else? What's the last one?
windpipe.
That's the trachea, that's the windpipe. You have to eat food, something, esophagus. Esophagus is the last one. So arteries and veins are on the side, they run very close to each other. Trachea is here in the middle, and then behind the trachea is esophagus. You can occlude the esophagus just by pushing on the trachea. If you wanted to do it yourself, we do this sometimes in anesthesia because we want the breathing tube to go in the right spots and all that. And so sometimes you can shut down, if someone is vomiting, for example, you can shut down the vomit or shut down the exit of gastric stuff just by pushing here on the trachea, and it shuts down the esophagus because the esophagus is very soft and the trachea is very hard. It's very hard cartilage rings. You can feel it. You know the Adam's apple people feel? So you push on it, you can occlude the esophagus. So for the animal, you take these out, it ejects the blood, and subhanAllah, this is part of the process. Okay, tell me about cows. Cow is one of the animals you guys said that is allowed to eat.
Cow, goat, ram,
Okay, excellent.
camel,
How many stomachs does a cow have? 6, 4, 8, 2 stomachs. Why would it have so many stomachs, guys? Okay, how many stomachs does a human being have? 1? Okay, so yeah, human being has 1 stomach. Cow has how many? Why is the cow? Cow is a mammal just like us, right? Cow is a mammal, goat is a mammal. These things are all mammals, so everyone came from the same, according to these evolutionary scientists and all that, we all came from the same thing, same bacteria that grew and grew. But some animal has, you guys don't know how many stomachs. The cow has 4 stomachs, and human being has 1 stomach. So what's going on? Why does this cow need 4 stomachs? More body. Boti. Okay, so cow has 4 stomachs. What does a cow eat? Grass, hay. Okay.
The reasoning is because evolutionary biology is that they eat the grass, but since it doesn't have as much nutrients, they have to keep like chewing it and chewing it.
Absolutely, they do have to keep chewing and chewing it.
That's why they have those extra stomachs.
Yeah, so they're reservoirs, they're containment centers. So what happens is the first stomach is humongous, 200 liters. 200 liters. You know these water bottles that you're drinking? How much is this one water bottle? 1 liter or half liter? Half liter. So you need 400 of these to make cow's stomach. You can drink 400. So there's a lot. Huge stomach. You've seen a cow is humongous, right? And he fills it up with grass. Now the problem is the cow can't eat. He can't chew that fast. You see a cow, he's so slow, right? He's super slow because he's eating grass all the time. So he eats the grass, he has very flat teeth, and he chews it and chews it, and he swallows it, and he puts it in his reservoir. And you're right. What happens is he starts regurgitating the grass back into his mouth. Yeah, because he can't digest it that fast. So he puts it back into his mouth, he chews it more, and then he puts it back in. Then he regurgitates it again, puts it back in. You may have heard this thing, chewing their curds, C-U-R-D-S, or maybe it's K-U-R-D-S. Curds is the regurgitated grass and all. It comes back up because they can't keep pushing it down. Allah subhanahu compares the non-Muslims and how like lost they are and how like deaf they are, how blind they are. It's like they're kal an'am. They're even more astray than this. Cattle, right? They're just like totally lost. They're just minding. They're just staring into distance. You look at a cow. You look at him. He's just staring out. He just doesn't do anything. Right? There's no like super high intelligence in the cow. Right? So you can't make a cow do tricks. Right? Cow's not going to do all these things. Different than like a horse. Different than like some of the other things. So cow is like very plain Jane. Right? Okay. So he eats it into his first stomach. And then he has 4 more stomachs. The first 3 stomachs are for bacterial digestion of the hay and the grass. And so this is why it's kind of smelly, because the bacteria produces a lot of gas. And so the cows have a lot of gas and all that, and they're burping it, and it's coming out from everywhere and all that. The 4th one is just like our stomach. It has acids. And this is to kill all the bacteria that was in the grass. Because, you know, imagine they're eating stuff that has dirty stuff in it, right? They're still animals. They don't want to get sick. So Allah SWT made defense mechanism for them too, so they don't get sick, because they're eating stuff that's on the floor, has germs, all that stuff. They have immune system too, but the acid kills all the bacteria and all that stuff. Okay, and much of it will come out, which we get and we use as like fertilizers and things. But the amazing part is, how is milk made? So now you're going to get your mind blown now. What kinds of animals produce milk? Mammal?
Very advanced, and they do.
Yeah.
Except for some animals, which don't. Like some animals, it's like very like few like species where they secrete like the milk from their skin.
Oh, really? I don't know about that. Mammals have special glands to secrete milk because their offspring are born alive. It's one of the properties of a mammal, different than birds, different than reptiles or amphibians. These, when they have babies, could be born as eggs. Okay, so when you have an egg, all your nutrients, everything's inside the egg, right? And this is also like a miracle how this happens, but the baby chick gets formed, and it gets formed somehow, like amazing, like magic trick. It's crazy, a miracle. It makes formed inside this thing, this yellow and white stuff, yolk and the egg white, and a chicken is born, and he has feathers, and he has a beak, and he has eyes, and he has a brain, and he has nerves, and he has all this stuff just from the yolk and the white stuff. I mean, I don't know how that happens, and he's breathing inside there, right? Different than the baby that's connected to the mom, because there's an umbilical cord feeding the baby and giving oxygen and all that, but the chicken doesn't have umbilical cord. Chicken doesn't have oxygen in here, like he's not, how is all these processes going? He's holding his breath all this time for however long it takes for a chicken to come out of this thing, right? I don't know how long, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it takes long, but there's This is like all miracles, right? How it's happening. It's all random atoms that got blown apart in a big explosion, probably, right? So mammals have to give milk to their babies because the animal is not born in an egg. And the animal is usually too weak to go and eat the food that the mom is eating, right? The mom is like, for example, tiger goes and has to catch the antelope or something like that, or lion has to catch the wildebeest or something. And so these animals, the cow, even the cow, when he's born, the little baby cow, he doesn't start eating grass. What does the cow drink? Cow drinks milk. Yeah, just like we do. We drink milk. We don't drink Pepsi or 7-Up or biryani rice or something when we're born. And why? Because we're not ready for it yet. Our system has not been designed yet for it to be starting to eat. So how do you make milk when you're drinking water? You're not drinking milk and you're somehow making milk. You're drinking water. So this cow, he's drinking water and he's eating grass. That's it. And somehow from drinking water and eating grass, he's putting muscle on. He's getting big and fat so you can make him a steak later and you can eat him on Eid al-Adha. And before that, he's going to give you milk. How is he making milk from eating grass? If I have a machine here and I told you guys I have a machine, all you got to do is take grass from outside. I don't care if it's good grass, bad grass, dead grass, whatever. Put it in this machine and add water and I'm going to give you milk. You're going to tell me I'm crazy. So, I'll give you, you would pay any amount of money for this, right? A machine that does that is like a magic trick. Okay, and he's going to give you steaks. You put grass inside and water and he's going to give you, I'm going to give you steak and I'm going to give you milk. I mean, how does this happen, right? So, okay, there's specific glands, there's very special glands that are in the cow and all mammals. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes comment on this. It's beautiful. وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ فِي الْأَنْعَامِ عِبْرَةً نُسْقِيكُم مِّمَّا فِي بُطُونِهِ مِن بَيْنِ فَرْثٍ وَدَمٍ لَبَنًا سَائِغًا لِلشَّارِبِينَ, right? Yeah, jazakumullah khair. So, and for you is a sign, is the cattle, the anam, right? I bring forth from it, baini, between what is waste and between what is blood, a pure drink, milk, that you enjoy and you like love to drink. It's literally like, it's not word for word translation, but it's like maybe summary. SubhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that. Between waste and blood, I give you a drink that you love, or that's like cool and nice for you, delicious for you to drink. What is going on? How do you make milk from between blood and so what is happening? Okay. Even moms who have to give milk to their babies is the same thing. What is happening? So you have special glands, okay? These glands get high more produced when you're pregnant. So you first of all have to have the hormones of pregnancy, so estrogen and progesterone. A cow will only give milk, not all the time. The cow has to be pregnant. Cow has to be pregnant. So imagine how much milk we drink. We drink, I read today, 200, we drink something crazy, 100 billion liters of milk in the United States a year. 100 billion liters. I mean, you can't even count how much that is. So you don't have that many cows. So how is this happening? And one cow can make about 30 liters of milk in a day. That's a lot. 30 liters. So this thing is half a liter. So 60 of these bottles a cow can make in one day for you for milk. It's pretty good. MashaAllah, amazing. But a cow has to be pregnant. And the cow's pregnancy is like human being pregnancy. It takes like 9 months. So imagine a cow has to be pregnant for that time. The cow will give you milk when the baby is born, like when the baby, right around the time of giving, and then when the baby's born, because the milk is for the baby, right? The milk is for the baby. But the cow makes more than enough milk than just for the baby. So the baby has enough milk, and then, mashallah, we get enough milk too. So Allah SWT made it that the cow overproduces even more. And one of the miracles is that the more you milk the cow, the more milk gets produced. And this is same with human beings. If you have a baby that drinks a lot of milk, more milk gets produced. And if there's less milk being used by the baby, the mom stops lactating. The mom stops producing milk. And this is why some moms don't nurse their babies. And some moms nurse their babies for 2 years. And what's the difference? Like, did this mom who was not nursing at all still produce milk for 2 years? No, she didn't keep producing milk for 2 years. And that's because Allah made a mechanism in place, is genius, that there's chemicals, prolactin, estrogen, progesterone, that go high quantities when they're nursing. And when they stop nursing, and the sacs that are full of milk, they stay full for some time, they don't get evacuated, it gets absorbed, and then they shut down. SubhanAllah. So it's a auto shut-off mechanism that if you have too much storage of something, your body says, I have too much storage, I'm shutting down these, and it down-regulates all the special glands that were made to produce milk. I don't need them anymore. Why would I? Because it takes a lot of energy to make milk. It takes a lot of energy. You have to eat a lot more. Ask any mom that has to nurse their babies. It takes a lot of energy. They're always tired. It's very, very tiring because there's so much energy used to produce milk. They will lose a lot of weight too. Like they'll eat and eat and eat a lot of calories. They can eat pizzas and steaks and all this stuff, and they're not going to put on weight when they're nursing. And it's because it takes so much energy to produce milk. SubhanAllah. So it's a really amazing shut-off mechanism that if you're not nursing, it shuts off. And if you do nurse, it will keep going. Because the baby, that means, is still there. And Allah SWT made it that if that means the baby's still nursing, I'm going to let the baby keep nursing. Really genius, too. Okay, so the glands, as they get full of milk, how do you get milk to be made in these glands? You're eating food. What happens when you eat food? You eat a pizza, right? The pizza goes in your stomach. Let's talk about the cow for a second. Cow's only eating grass. He's not eating a pizza. He's not eating cheese because then he'd be eating like something he made himself. It would be kind of weird. And so the cow eats grass and he drinks water. And then that grass and stuff gets broken down. And it gets broken down into very, very fine, like smaller grass. And then it keeps getting broken down by the chemicals. And what happens is it gets broken down into its basic components, which is going to be like the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, and all that stuff, right? Whatever's in the grass. And then what happens is it's so finely ground up now, it's broken down so fine, it passes through the intestinal walls. When it goes through the intestinal walls, it goes into the bloodstream. And now the blood passes through, there's so many blood vessels by these glands that make the milk. As it passes through, these glands absorb these nutrients. So it's really amazing what's happening. If you imagine, it's like a highway, and they're transporting these trucks full of supplies. And these glands have to notice when the supplies are coming by that make milk, and it has to pull these specific ones off the highway, unload, undock all the supplies it needs to make the milk in the gland, and it produces the milk. And these things are flying by just like your blood flow. So imagine when you cut yourself and your blood starts flowing out, it's flying by really, really fast. The blood flow is 5 liters a minute. It's very fast. And so you have to be able to catch, these glands are catching these supplies on these shipments, on these containers as they're coming through, and catching it and pulling it into itself, and then it produces milk. And subhanAllah, you have this in your kidneys, not these same glands, but you have different glands that do different things. Your kidneys produce urine, right? Your kidneys produce urine that go through the ureters to your bladder holds it, and then it comes out. So your same blood is the one that is going to make urine, your same blood is the one that's going to make your muscles grow, is the same one that's going to make the milk, same one that's going to power your oxygen to your brain and your heart and everywhere. It's the same one that does all these things, all these chemicals are in your blood, and each of these specific organs has to pick off the one that it needs. What is happening here is like a miracle. And so the ones that produce milk, they wait for those supplies to show up at the docking station, they take it, they produce the milk, they shoot it into a specific plumbing system, and it waits there. And it waits until the baby is ready for nursing. So the baby cow or baby human or whatever, and when it's ready, the mom cow or the human mom sends a signal because she will hear the baby cry, or the little cow, he will be mooing. And you'll notice sometimes the cow will headbutt the mom right in the ureter. Right in the, what is the thing called that gives the milk? Udders. They're going to headbutt the mom in the udder. It's kind of like when a baby wants to nurse and they move their head and all that stuff. This releases something called prolactin in the mom's brain. And what it does is it fires off those plumbing systems that are all expanded and they have the milk ready. It collapses them and it lets all the milk come out in one go. And subhanAllah, it's like it was all waiting, ready to be fired, like a gun ready to be fired. You just have to pull the trigger. So as soon as the mom hears the baby or the baby starts to nurse, or the head butt comes from the baby cow onto the udder, it releases the milk, and the milk starts coming out. SubhanAllah, it's like an ingenious system. And then more starts getting produced right away pretty quickly by the blood flow that's coming in. So the system is like incredible. It cannot be replicated by human beings. You cannot make a machine like this. You cannot make an animal like this. Like, this is like what's happening. And this is like basic stuff that we, like I've summarized it to like the most basic elementary level. What we learn in school is way higher up. And then what we don't even know that is happening. This is stuff we've discovered. But there's going to be trillions of processes we have not even understood yet that we don't know how it's happening. That came from here to the part that where we are trying to understand it. There's stuff happening behind the scenes, behind the curtain, in the ghaib, that we haven't seen yet, don't understand yet, we can't test yet, and it's making this milk. And so subhanAllah, the miracle of life is really genius. Genius. Engineering behind it is like Allah subhanahu how He made this thing is incredible. From the animal, then the cow and all these other animals, we get things that are like the fur, the wool, the skins, the bones. You know, so we make leather goods, your purses, your wallet, your couches, your clothing you wear, your jackets so you can keep warm. All these things are stuff from the animal that Allah subhanahu made for our benefit, right? This is also Quran that I've made these things, the animal, an'am. You take benefit from it. And from it also you do your work on the fields. And from it you also take transportation. So subhanAllah, it's really amazing things that Allah subhanahu made. We have about 9 minutes left. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. I mean, it's never-ending miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does anyone have any other comments or questions or things you want to talk about? Or, yeah.
So, okay, I have a question about counsel. So, I know like in the Quran it says like it's like beneficial for you when you drink it. Then how come like, for example, like milk from like HIV, I've just heard like it causes like inflammation and like even if you're not lactose intolerant, like you just won't feel good after drinking it. So would you say that's like the quality of milk, or is it like something with pasteurization? Like what's going on with that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a great question. So the question is, why are some studies coming out about milk and its potential inflammatory properties and all that? You know, so we always thought that wine, which is alcohol, it comes from grapes. Grapes that gets pressed and fermented, and it makes wine, right? And so there was some studies to suggest a few years ago that wine in moderate amounts or even small amounts would be beneficial for you. And so people may say, well, wait a second, what's going on here? Allah subhanahu says, don't drink wine. Muslims don't drink wine. And it's apparently very good for you. And so Islam has to be wrong because this is, well, lo and behold, what happened is maybe a year ago, study comes out and it's even a small amount of alcohol is bad for you. SubhanAllah. Can you believe it? And so, things like cupping. So cupping, we are evacuating blood, and it may seem like on the surface that we're not sure about the properties or what's going on, but we know, we trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The science may be changing day to day, but at the end of the day, we know that this is the truth, and the truth will come out eventually, okay? And so we know milk is necessary for life, because without it, no baby would survive. Milk has to be. Everything, you know, has good and bad in it. Nothing is like 100% like, oh, if you drink only milk and don't drink water, then you're going to be healthy. I don't think that's what the Quran is saying either. So I think we accept it, and whatever the studies are showing now for inflammation or non-inflammation or what, I mean, I don't know, the studies change like fairly frequently. And so we just have to see the pasteurization process is there. We add a lot of chemicals to milk. If you see, like I watched a lot of videos just to do this on how milk is processed, and it's pretty crazy what happens. So we pump the cows full of hormones because it's not natural for making this much milk at one time, right? And so we pump estrogen and progesterone into these cows, kind of like the chickens. You know, how do you think all these chickens, when you go to eat chicken, how is so much like this breast meat, the white meat? If you get like a chicken and so much white meat, if you've seen a chicken, the chicken doesn't have a lot of white meat. The chest is pretty small for the chicken. But you're eating like the chicken breast is like humongous. What's happening is if you go look at these chickens on the farm where they're getting it from, the chicken has a humongous chest like this. And the way it happens is they feed the chicken estrogen, progesterone, and so they selectively make it, they genetically engineer it so that the chicken has a big chest, so you have a lot of white meat. So there's a lot of other stuff that's happening that's not natural that is behind the scenes. They do so much stuff to these animals. They put them under a lot of stress. They feed them very strong chemicals because they don't want, all these things. These plants, there's these huge storage containers for the milk, huge story like cylinders of milk, and they have to refrigerate it to a certain temperature. Then they heat it up and they pass it through pipes, and there's all this stuff happening. And who knows what's going on through all of this journey for the milk to come to HEB. So I think long story short, drink milk if you like it. If you don't like it, you leave it, whatever it is. But we accept for sure that, alhamdulillah, this is the truth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it's a drink that you enjoy, not necessarily, I may have misquoted if I said it was something that's like healthy, but it is. I think it's like a drink that you enjoy. So some people enjoy it, right? But the miracle of it is that it comes from between something that is not good, filthy, and something that is your blood. And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it, no one else can make it. This is a sign, and this is literally what he starts the subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ayah with. This is a sign for you, if you just think about it. Yes, yeah, so subhanAllah, in Surah, what's the surah that has it? There are 4 rivers. One of the rivers is milk that has never-changing taste. Why is that even important? Why did Allah put that? So each of these rivers, we can go quickly through it. What are the 4 rivers and what do they have? And each of these has a different quality. The one for milk, he said, subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, never-ending taste, a never-changing taste. Why? Because milk spoils. So subhanAllah, he made it that this milk is not spoiling. It's genius, right? You think, well, it's a river, after some time, we're there forever, the milk is going to go bad. It doesn't go bad, it doesn't change, it doesn't get bad flavor. SubhanAllah. There's 4 rivers, and tell me the surah. Who knows the surah and what are the 4 rivers? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, yeah. So, yeah. So, Surah Muhammad, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, water, milk, wine, and honey. And each of these has 4 different properties. The honey, Allah SWT says something, the water something, the milk something, and the wine something. So it's really peculiar why these things, qualities, characteristics for these 4, and it's because each 4 have different qualities here in the dunya. So it's really amazing. Okay, yeah, question. Yeah. The milk goes through a lot of processes. So there's like different chemicals. Excellent point. Lactate. It's homogenized here. It's pasteurized here. It's very different than drinking it from the animal directly. Yeah.
For the child, how many months should the mother?
There's ayah in Quran about it. What is it? 2.5 years? Yeah. So but you can do before that if you wanted to. But that's when now you should make the transition, I think. What else?
I had another question.
Yeah.
Why is that when you sacrifice animal, you should not decapitate the whole fish?
I don't know. This would be like a fiqh type thing more than science. I don't know. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of on the topic of like halal why can't you slaughter like horse and
Yeah, I don't know. This is all fiqh, like what's allowed and not allowed. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, why can't you eat a fish? So interesting, why don't you have to have the same problem with the fish? Forget Eid al-Adha for a second. Why don't you have to decapitate the fish or cut the fish off at the head? You ever think about that? Why is the bahar, the food from there, halal? We talked about it at the beginning. How do you make the animal halal? You take it at the neck, right? Like when a tiger or cheetah goes and attacks its prey, goes to the throat. Same thing, we go to the throat, same thing. Now how come for the fish, how come you don't have that problem? They're all? They don't have a net? That's a good answer. The circulatory system of the fish is different than the mammal. Circulatory system, if you cut the fish's head off, he's not going to bleed out. He has different circulators, a different way the blood flows in the fish. Allah SWT made a different animal. Yeah, the fish doesn't have blood flow like a mammal. He doesn't have the arteries and the veins and a heart pump like we do. We have a closed circulatory system. He has open circulatory systems, different circulatory system. It's amazing. There's totally different heart, totally different blood flow, the way the blood gets uptaked, the way he cleans his chemicals in the body. It's not like kidneys and liver and all that stuff. It's different. It's a different way. SubhanAllah.
I have,
Yeah.
this is the tender meat in the food.
Filet mignon? I don't know. For sure. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Anything else? جزاكم الله خير. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.